Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Batwing lace sweater, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description where you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, a link to the written pattern, and links to all the supplies you need, as well as any other video tutorials that I'll reference here today. To make this pattern, you'll need Red Heart Heat Wave, which is a worsted weight acrylic yarn, and a US, well, it doesn't actually have a letter. It's a 7mm hook. So just look for the millimeters for this one, 7mm. Sometimes people, or rather manufacturers, assign a number or a letter to this one, but otherwise the millimeters is the way to go. This one happens to be by Clover. This pattern comes in a whole range of sizes from extra small all the way up to 5X. In fact, the 4X and 5X are the same size. When I was designing it, I found the numbers kept coming out the same, so we just made them the same size. But it is a great oversized fit, and really those different sizes, of course, provide different sizes throughout, but it's so oversized, really what it's coming down to is the length of those sleeves, making sure your sleeves are long enough. This pattern is made in 2 pieces. You make the 2 gray portions, then you seam them together using the white, or again, whatever colors you choose. There's lots of beautiful colors of Red Heart Heat Wave to choose from. But we seam those together using basically what's an Afghan join here at the shoulder, going from the neck all the way to the wrist. And then we seam the sides with some simple sewing and add our cuffs and our bottom hem. Finally, there's just a little bit of neckline edging up here. First, let's take a look at a couple pictures of the Batwing lace sweater on. As you can see, it is an oversized loose fit, and it's very cozy and very cuddly. Here's a quick printout of the Batwing lace sweater pattern. I wanted to point out, as I said, there are all these different sizes, and these are how they are displayed in the pattern. So I do recommend that you print it out and then circle all the numbers for the size that you want to make. There are also notes on what you can do to skip certain stitches if you prefer to avoid those stitches as well. And as mentioned here, the front and the back of the sweater are identical, and the finished sweater, you could probably turn it around and wear it front to back because they're totally the same. But I do have to refer to them as piece 1 and piece 2, so that's just arbitrary. You can put a stitch marker on them and just decide which one is piece 1 and piece 2. I'm going to be demoing with a slightly smaller amount here today, so we have a swatch that will fit on the little table here. But as you can see, here are those different numbers for the sizes. So if you're making extra small, you'll follow that first number. If you're making a large like me, you need to go up to extra small, small, medium, large. Make sure you follow the numbers for your size. So to make the Batwing lace sweater, we make 2 pieces, the front and back, with color A. To make the first row, we work a row of foundation single crochets, and the number will depend on what size you're making. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to start with 10. To make foundation single crochets, I have started with 2 chains. Then I'm going to go under the back hump of the chain furthest from my hook, the first one I made. I will yarn over, pull up a loop, and that loop right there will become the chain at the bottom of my first single crochet. Then I yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I yarn over and pull through 2. And I do recommend that you go ahead and put a stitch marker right in that very first stitch. That will help you maintain your stitch count, and it just makes it a little bit easier when you come back in the other direction as well. So there we go. And then we simply continue across with however many more are needed for our size. To make the rest of the foundation single crochets, you go under the 2 loops of the previous stitch here at the bottom. Remember when I pulled up that first loop and I said it would be our chain? You can see it creates basically a V right there at the bottom of the stitch. We put our hook, I say underneath, but in a way I guess it's above these 2 since this is the top of our stitch. We just put it right there at the base of the previous stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Now this loop becomes the chain at the bottom of this stitch. So we yarn over and pull through that loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2. So that is our second foundation single crochet. And I do have a separate tutorial for this linked at the link in the description, as well as an alternative method for your notes. So go ahead and make your first row with however many stitches are needed for your size. Okay, so when you've finished row 1, then it's time for row 2. To make row 2, we're going to turn to come back the other way, and I'm going to start with a chainless starting double crochet. If you prefer, you can avoid the stitch by using a chain 3 or any of the other double crochet substitutes that you might prefer. I'm going to pull up the loop to the height of a double crochet, put my finger on top of that loop, yarn over with that loop itself, go into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through that loop and behind the one that I wound around, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to finish it. Okay, so after you've put a stitch marker in that stitch to mark it as the first stitch of this row, we continue by working a front loop only double crochet still in that first stitch. So the first stitch gets 2 stitches in it. That's going to create the increase that creates the batwing shape. We'll increase at the beginning and at the end of every row for the next several rows, depending on size. So we yarn over and we go under just the front loop. Now, since we've already worked around both these loops, they're kind of squished together. So you may need to use your hook to kind of tease them apart a little bit there, but we want to go under just the front loop. That's the one of the top V that is closest to you, the crocheter. After that, it's just a standard double crochet, like so. So we've got 2 stitches in our first stitch, and then we just continue on across, working front loop only, double crochets, until we get to that very last stitch of the row. So by working these front loop double crochets, we are creating a bit more drape and flexibility in our fabric. If you look closely at the way the stitches are formed, you can see right here on the row we're making, that back loop, the one furthest away from us right now, is actually a little bit higher than the one that's closer to us. So when we flip it over and work under just that front loop, because what's a back loop here is now that front loop here, that's a little bit higher and it creates that little additional drape. So I'm just going to continue working across, and of course you'll have quite a few more stitches here than I do. But we just want to get to that very last stitch because we're going to need to increase again so that we can create the batwing shape for our sweater. We're essentially working from the bottom up for these front and back pieces. Let me pull up a little bit more yarn here. And now you can see I've come to my last stitch, and that's easy for me to see because I've left a stitch marker in it. So in that last stitch, we're going to work both a front loop only double crochet like we've been doing all the way across and an extended double crochet. This is slightly higher and will keep the sides of our sweater a little more even, since a double crochet worked through both of those loops is just a little bit shorter than a front loop double crochet. So we start by working the front loop only double crochet, just as we did before. And then we have our extended double crochet through both of those loops. So we yarn over, and now we go under that front loop and the back loop. Make sure you catch both of them. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through just that first loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. And as you can see, that evens it up just a little bit. It's actually still a little bit higher yet, but the chainless starting double crochet on the other end sort of evens that out every other row. So we'll take our stitch marker out of there, and we're ready to continue. Now rows 3 through however many, depends on the size you're making, are all going to be exactly the same as row 2. We start with our chainless starting double crochet, or whatever double crochet substitute you prefer, right in that first stitch. And again, I always recommend that you put a stitch marker in it. There we go. And then a front loop only double crochet right back in that same stitch. Again, you might need to kind of tease those loops apart there to get that one in there. And then we simply front loop only double crochet across until we get to that last stitch where we work our front loop only double crochet and our extended double crochet. So you'll need to refer to the written pattern to see how many rows you repeat this for your size. Okay, so here I am at the last stitch of row 3. And I'm going to go ahead and try and get my front loop only double crochet in there. There we go. And if you need to take that stitch marker out, if it's in the way at this point, that's fine. You know this is the last stitch. And then I want to make sure to get the extended double crochet under both of those loops. There we go. So I pull up my loop, yarn over and pull through 1, then finish it off like a regular double crochet. So as I say, rows 2 through however many for your size is going to give you the majority of your height for your sweater. After that, we're ready to work the sleeve rows. So after you've worked the number of rows called for your size, then for the next 3 or 4 rows, again, depending on size, we're going to be working even. So that means we're not going to be increasing at the beginning or end of the row anymore. We want to work even. This is essentially going to be the ends of our sleeves. We don't want an angled sleeve cuff. If we kept going in this pattern, which you should do for the full-size sweater, you can see we're getting this shape, and now we just want to work straight up and down. So very simply, we would chainless starting double crochet in the first stitch, just as we've been doing all along. So we'll get our stitch marker right in there. And then just front loop double crochet in each stitch across until you get to the last stitch. So don't work into that first stitch again. Go right on into the next stitch and work all the way across. When you get to that very last stitch, we only want to put 1 stitch in there, but it will be the extended double crochet. Okay, so here I am at that last stitch. So rather than working into it twice, I'm just going to go into it once, but I'm going to go under both of those loops for our extended double crochet. There we are. So again, that's now working even, and we just want to do that for either 3 or 4 rows, depending on size. And if you like a bigger, wider sleeve, you can go ahead and add an extra row here. It's totally up to you, and it will still absolutely work. Once you've got those rows all finished, though, it's time to break your yarn, and then make another one. So after you've made both pieces, I recommend that you use stitch markers to mark the right side. You also might want to mark which one is going to be piece 1 and piece 2, although they're completely identical. It just might help you keep track a little bit. So I've made my 2 pieces here, and I've already gone ahead and put the first shoulder on the first piece. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the first shoulder on our second piece, because these parts are also identical. Okay, so to add the shoulder, we're going to go from the wrong side of the fabric. Remember, I've got a stitch marker there marking the right side, so now I'm on the wrong side. I'm going to bring up my contrast color of yarn. You could use the same color if you prefer, but I like to use something different to make these shoulders stand out just a little bit more. And then we're going to join with a double crochet to the first stitch. So to do that, I like to yarn over twice, go right into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. This is also known as a standing double crochet, and I do have a separate tutorial for this stitch as well, linked at the link in the description. I'm going to go ahead and put those 2 loops. That tail becomes one of the loops there under my stitch marker, so I've got that stitch marked. Then I am going to do a front loop only double crochet in the next however many stitches. Now the number of stitches again is going to depend on what size you're making. It could be anywhere from 50 to 62. So at the end, you'll have anywhere from 51 to 63 stitches. Now, if you've made all the rows necessary for your size, there's going to be a lot more stitches than that. We're only making the first shoulder. So you can see here, we're just working over those first few stitches, then we'll have a neckline, and then we'll do our second shoulder. So for our little demo swatch here today, it looks like I did 5 stitches on the other ones. That's all I'll do here. And I did. I accidentally went under both of those loops. So I'll pull that stitch back out. I want to go under just those front loops here, just like we were doing before. Since this is from the wrong side, when we turn, we're going to have a great little row of unused loops right here, which creates, I think, a really nice effect on the finished sweater. So you'll crochet across for however many stitches is called for your size. The rest of those stitches all remain unworked. Then we turn to come back the other direction. Chain 1, work a single crochet right in that first stitch. Then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip the next stitch and single crochet in the stitch after that. And that's our repeat. Chain 3 again, skip the next stitch and single crochet in the stitch after that. So you should always land with a single crochet in that last stitch. And that's it for that first shoulder, a row of double crochets and then a row of chain 3 loops with single crochets. Then we can cut that yarn as well. Now, I do recommend, if you're making the full-size sweater, that you go ahead and weave in some of your ends right here. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and let those hang out here to the side. So we've got the first shoulder made on our first and second pieces for our sweater. So now we're ready for the second shoulder of our first piece. Again, it doesn't matter which one of these is the first or the second. Just go ahead and pick one. Let's say it's this one. So again, we're going to be joining from the wrong side. So from the same side we did that first shoulder. But we need to refer to the number of the instructions to see which stitch to join to. So you're going to want to count along that last stitch that you made in your first color and look for your number. For instance, for the extra small, you begin by joining to stitch number 74. So you would start counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. until you got to 74, and that's where you would join for your second shoulder of the first piece. So again, refer to the written instructions to get the number for your size. Now for our little swatch here, I just want to make sure I've got the same number for my little shoulder. So I'm going to count in here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like I'll need to start right about there. I will be skipping 4 stitches for my neckline today. You'll of course want a much bigger neckline on your full size sweater. But again, we're just going to join just as we did before, but this time we want to join with a front loop only double crochet. That's what we finished with, so that's what we want to start with here so that our neckline looks the same. So whichever stitch you're meant to join to, you just go under that front loop only, but otherwise it's exactly the same. Like so. And then simply front loop only, double crochet on across until you get to that very last stitch. And then we're just going to work a standard double crochet in the last stitch. Because I'm on my tiny little swatch, I'm already there. So I've got that stitch marked. I know it's my last one. This one, I'm going to be sure to go under both loops and finish that off. And there is row 1 for our second shoulder of the first piece. Okay, so after we've made row 1 of our second shoulder, then we are ready to join to the other piece as we make row 2. So this is where it gets to be a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and get this little stitch marker here out of the way, and I'm going to chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you like to do it, to put that first single crochet in there. Now, because of the way this is made, it's really easy to make sure you're matching your wrong sides together because it's the only way it's going to work. What we need to do is take our second piece and essentially we're matching them up like this, and I'm going to be crocheting into these chain 3 loops as I make these chain 3 loops. That will link them together all the way from wrist to neck. So I'm going to start by chaining 1. Then I'm going to take my hook out of that loop, and I always like to just put it right over my finger like that. Keeps it right where I need it, so I can just drop my hook right back in there when I'm ready. Then I'm going to take this piece, and I want to kind of come from the outside. You can see here, if we line it up this way, so that both right sides are facing up, then I can go right into that first chain 3 space right there with my hook, put that loop on my finger right back on my hook, and pull it down to the right size. Pull that loop up and through, and then I chain 1, and that encloses that chain 3 right there. Chain 1 again. So now I've made a total of 3 chains. Then I can come back here, skip 1, and single crochet in the next. So the only difference is we're connecting to the other piece as we make these. So we chain 1 again, take our hook out of the loop, put our hook in the next chain 3 space, working towards the neckline there, insert our hook back in that loop, pull it through, chain 1, that attaches them, chain 1 again, there we go, come back over to this one, skip the next one, and single crochet in the next. Now obviously on your full size sweater, you're going to need to do that many more times for your size. But you just keep doing it all the way to get up to that neckline, and then it's time to just go ahead and break the yarn. You can see here, we've created that really lovely braid right on our shoulder. So let me find the correct yarn to cut here. There we are. I will go ahead and secure that, and then we will be ready to join the second shoulder. There we go. I did not want to cooperate with me. Okay, so for our second shoulder, we're going to need to kind of flip the whole thing over here because we know we're going to be working right here so we can connect to this one. And we want to make sure, again, we're on the wrong side. You can kind of read your stitches here and see this is the side we joined to. So you'll need to count out that same number of stitches so that we can essentially do the same thing on this shoulder. We'll join with our double crochet. Let me get those on there and count out my neckline. And we want to make sure, again, to go under just that front loop only. There we are. So for this row, kind of, it's helpful to have, a big space on your lap or maybe a table in front of you to let the sweater sort of hang out on and hold all that weight while you work these stitches across here. Because of course you'll have quite a few more than I have here on my little swatch. Oops. When you get to the last one of these, again, you'll just work a standard double crochet right under both of those loops. And then we are ready for that second row of connecting the two shoulders. So you can chain one, maybe just kind of flip the whole thing over, however it works for you, to sort of look at it, what angle you like to look at it from. Put a single crochet right in that first loop, chain one, and then again, lay it out, sort of take your time, make sure you're matching up the right parts. Find that first chain 3 loop there, again, the one closest to the wrist or the sleeve. Put that loop back on your hook. Pull it right on up and over so you can chain one to enclose it and chain one again. Come back down here to this shoulder, skip one and single crochet in the next. And then just continue working that all the way up this sleeve until you hit that neckline again. Again, on our little swatch here, it's a real little guy. So I've only got these 2 loops, but that should give you an idea of how it works. And then I forgot to put my stitch marker in that one, so I have to kind of wiggle my hook in there and get that last single crochet made. So with that, once you've worked all the way across those and secured those, you have already made those beautiful shoulders. So, whoops, missed my hook there. Glanced away and missed it. Okay, there we are. So you may want to go ahead and weave in your ends at this point, because it is a little bit crazy and messy. But then the next step after you've woven in those ends is to seam up your sides. So let me give all those little ends here a shake out of our way. And what you're going to be seaming is all the rows from row 1 right up until where you started working even. So the number of rows here, it's going to be the same number of rows that you made in the first section before you started working even. That's the number of rows you're seaming up the sides. So you can simply take your yarn needle and matching yarn color and do a mattress stitch or a whip stitch or whatever you like to do to seam up those sides. And I do have a video tutorial for the mattress stitch linked at the link in the description and here on the Moogly YouTube channel. So you can check that out if you don't know how to do that sort of seaming. After you've sewn those sides up and just woven in those ends, just like you'd weave in your ends anywhere else, then it's simply time to add the cuffs and the bottom hem. Now for the bottom hem, I use my standard cuffs and brims, my favorite method, honestly. It's worked side to side all the way around the bottom of the sweater. And I do have a separate tutorial for this linked at the link in the description that goes into detail of how to work this. Since it's worked in rows, you can make it really any width you want. For the bottom hem here, I used a chain 5, so it's only 4 single crochets in each one of these little rows worked all the way around the bottom hem. Now, I used the same technique to make the wrist cuffs, I guess would be the word I'm looking for here. But because we are working across these rows here, it is just a little bit different to get set up for that. So to add the sleeve cuffs, obviously be working with a much bigger hole than I've got here on my little swatch, but the idea is the same no matter what size you're making. Now for the sleeve cuffs, I used my first color, my color A, but you can use whatever color you like. So what I want to do is I want to join to the side of the row right after the side seam. So that's that first row where you started working even. And whenever we work into the side of a double crochet row, my rule of thumb is to work 2 stitches, whatever they are, into the side of each double crochet row. So find the place where you'd like your hook to go, sort of in the bottom half of that stitch, then yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over again to chain 1. Then we're going to single crochet right in that row there, and then single crochet again. So we want to work 2 single crochets in the side of each double crochet row all the way up till we get to this lace section. So as you can see, that first row of our lace section is still another row of double crochet. So work 2 more double crochets right in the side of that one as well. Whoops, I'll get that through. There we go. Then we come to what I've called the single crochet roll, or that single crochet that started before we did our chain 3 loops, the single crochet at the end. We want to work 1 single crochet right in the side of that stitch. Now you can see it's a little easier sometimes to actually go under those top 2 loops. You're still right along the side of that stitch. Then what we're going to do is we are going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then jump all the way over here and single crochet in the side of that next single crochet right there. Then we work 2 single crochets in the side of each double crochet until we get all the way back down to that side seam. So get 2 in the side of our green double crochet here, our color B. And I always like to try to go under 2 loops on the side of the stitch there. It just makes it feel a little bit more secure and keeps it a little more even. And then we're back down to our color A rows. Again, just 2 single crochets in the side of each double crochet. Then you can join with a slip stitch and go on to the cuff. Okay, so I've joined with a slip stitch, and that was setup round 1 for our sleeves. There is a second setup round before we begin the standard cuff instructions. For the second setup round, we're simply going to chain 1 and single crochet in each stitch around until we get to those chains, those 3 chains we made that sort of, oops, grabbing my tail end there. Let's try that again. There we go. Those 3 chains that we made to get us over that lace section, we're just going to work back loop only single crochets in those 3 chains. So here we are at our little 3 chains. And again, we just want to go under that back loop, the one that's furthest away from us, with a single crochet in each one of those chains. And that will give us a really nice stable line to begin our cuff in. There we are. So those 3, and then we can go back right back to single crocheting under both of those loops for the remaining of the stitches. You can see that just gives us a really nice row there that we can then work our cuff into. So the last thing I want to demonstrate today is how to make the neckline edging. It's just one round that is going to solidify our neckline a little bit and just give it a nice little finished look. Again, I went with my original color, but you can use whichever color you prefer. Now I'm going to join to any stitch of piece 1 or piece 2 at the neck opening. Remember, at this point, our sweater is still totally reversible, and depending on how beautiful your join is, it always will be. So just go ahead and pick any stitch. I'll just go ahead and pick one here right in the middle or so. So we join and chain 1, and then simply single crochet in each stitch across until you get to that shoulder. So nice and easy, just a single crochet in each stitch until you get to that next stitch is where our shoulder is joined. So we work 2 single crochets in the side of this double crochet row, just as we did when we were making our sleeves, or rather our sleeve cuffs, since the sleeves are kind of built in on this sweater. So wiggle our hook through there and get our second single crochet right there. And then we are going to, of course, single crochet in the side of that single crochet right there. And then now we're simply going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We want our neckline to be a little bit looser than our cuff. I tried to make it a really nice, not tight, but a well-fit cuff. We want our neckline to be a little bit looser and opener for our heads. So instead, we chain 4. Now, that said, if you find that neckline's a little too open for you, you could absolutely take one of these chains out and go back to a chain 3. So after you've chained 4, it's just like our sleeve cuff. We hop on over to that single crochet. Ideally, you'd have all these ends already sort of tucked away. There we go. And then 2 single crochets in the side of that next double crochet. So 1 and 2. Just take your time. Don't have to do too many of these, thankfully. Not a whole lot of working into the edges with this particular pattern. And then you can hop right down into that first unused stitch right there at the other side of our neckline. I guess this would be the front now officially. And simply single crochet in each stitch across until you get to that second shoulder. And then we'll do it again together here so you can see. Here, we've worked in each stitch until, did I work too many? Looks like maybe I did. In fact, I worked 1 too many stitches there. You don't want to work into the same stitch that your shoulder is attached to. So no big deal, pull that right out. Then hop on up here to this double crochet and work 1 and 2 single crochets in the side there. The second one always wants to be a little extra tricky. There we go. And then a single crochet right in the side of that single crochet. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Jump on over here to that single crochet here on our other piece. And then, of course, we've got 2 double crochets on the side of that double crochet. So there's 1 and 2. And if you wanted to, you could even, if you really wanted to hide that join, might be easier to go ahead and, make this your last stitch and actually join up right here. However works for you. You probably have a couple stitches left right there though, so just go ahead and jump right back down to there and work across until you've come up to that last one. And then you can join and break your yarn, or you can break your yarn and use the seamless join, whatever you prefer. But that is it for the neckline. There we go, the hook got caught. So as you can see, it's a very simple neckline and just one great row that really ties the whole thing together. So if we take another look at the finished sweater, you can see here is piece 1 and there is piece 2. And I've simply seamed them together here right along the edge. And you can see, if we continue that row 2 repeat, how it creates the shape that we are making in this sweater. Here's the waist, and we work our way all the way up here until it's long enough to be long enough for our sleeve. Then there's that row 1, and then the row 2 that links together and creates this really gorgeous braid. Let me get my hair off of it, and I can open it up here so you can see how all those linked loops just create something really pretty. It's so simple, but there it is. And there's that little chain 4 right across there for our very simple neckline. And if you wanted to add to that, you absolutely could. You could turn this into a turtleneck, a funnel neck, do all sorts of fun things. Then here at the end of our sleeve, we've got just that little chain 3 where we then work into the back loops only. And then we work our cuffs on around. And that really is all there is to making the Batwing lace sweater. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial for the Batwing lace sweater. It really is simple and quite a bit of fun. And if you refer to those other video tutorials I've mentioned, that should take you the rest of the way. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.